Well, yeah, thanks Miles very much for that generous introduction. I will talk a little bit about Westcare, and I'll also talk a little bit about myself and my own journey and how I got to Westcare. And I'll probably surprise Miles, and probably surprise a few of you, especially around my exit strategy from the military and moving on into Westcare. So I know it's getting late. I know it's late on a Friday. If you're like me, you've probably been up since about 4:30 this morning. Just had a coffee nap. Will last about 20 minutes. And then we'll have another bit of a nap. That's what I do. But I will talk about Westcare. I will talk about what we do, who we are, a little about myself, a little about the differences in the lives of the people that we support. That's people with disability. And also, as Miles touched on, about running and the benefits and pros of running an organisation that's built on inclusivity with people with disability. So very quickly about Westcare, we're not a new organisation. Many people have not heard of ours. We don't really market a great deal. But we first opened our first establishment in 1914. So we opened the Waterloo Sanatorium back in 1914 to treat a whole host of diseases like TB, typhoid, diphtheria, and leprosy, all those that were prevalent amongst the mass migration to WA in the gold rush in the late 18th and early 19th century. So we've been around a long, long time. But we're very, very different today. The mission for Westcare is to provide training, development, and more so meaningful employment for people with a disability. And we've been doing this for over 75 years. So we're not new, we've been here a long time. We employ over 200 million. We employ over 200 people, and our turnover is close to about 15 million a year. So we're not small, we're not huge, we've got a bit of a niche market. And whilst we are a not-for-profit, or a social enterprise, we don't receive a lot of money from government. Not direct funding, a little bit via the NDIS, but not a lot. But what we do get is that all of our income comes from some indirect funding from government. We're very well supported by some government departments. For example, the Wayne Police, they support us. We print all of their speeding fines. So if any of you get a speeding fine, you're speeding with purpose, you're not hitting us. We print all of your driving licences, your firearms licences, those sort of things. And in our Basildine factory on Hamwell Way, we also make all of the high-load vests for the the Queensland Police and the South Australian Police. So we're heavily supported indirectly by government. We're also heavily supported by the health department as well. We print and make all of the health orders, all of the public hospitals throughout WA. Perth Transport supporters, we make all of the safety gear at our Basildine factory for Perth Transport Authority as well. So most of our money comes from our commercial contracts. And our customers know that if they use us, like using Menshed, all of our services goes back into providing employment and meaningful training and development for people with disabilities. So they know they're giving back to the community, and they know that they're fulfilling their social responsibility. And that's why they use us. So Westcare's got 3 divisions. We're a bit like Menshed's our 3 divisions. We've got Westcare Print that Miles came to visit. That's a 2,000 square metre factory in the Netherlands. We've got around $1 million worth of print equipment in there, and we have about 60 staff there, so it's quite large. We've got the Basildine Industries, which is probably twice the size, on Hamwell Way actually. It produces safety wear, industrial packaging, food packaging, and food handling. And more recently, we've got government grants to produce locally produced PPE for the hospitals. We've got Personals in East Perth, another large factory with around $6 million worth of very sophisticated print and packaging equipment. We make all of the Hello Fresh boxes, little creatures, beer cartons, and we pack all of the Pfizer packaging as well for WA at the moment. Got about 28 staff there, so overall over 200 staff. So we have got some really big sheds, really big. And we've also got accommodation. We've got 50 units of independent accommodation for people with disability in Shenton Park. That's Westcare, more or less. My role as the CEO of Westcare is to serve, support and guide the organisation And most important part of my role for me is to lead with empathy and with compassion. And in doing so, recognition of the importance of diversity is, of course, vitally important for me. My background, as Miles touched on, and I'll touch on it a little bit as well, is certainly very varied. I didn't start in disability, I didn't start in social services, so my experiences has led me to quite a deep understanding, I believe, of diversity and of the importance of diversity in organisations, and it empowers me to lead my organisation with empathy. So let's get to that. We've got 205 staff. 80% of our staff are people living with a disability. 31% are female. And we've got two main age groups. Firstly, we've got 21 to 26-year-olds of the main group, and then 56 to 60-year-olds. Most employers have been with us for over 10 years, and over 20%, that's over 40 people, have been with Westcare for over 30 years, which is unheard of normally. So from a perspective of employee turnover, staff retention, organisational culture, we are highly successful, and we're obviously doing the right thing. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the challenges of running a social enterprise like Westcare. I did want to just highlight a couple of statistics from the Australian Human Rights Commission, very quickly rushing through. So they're advertising that 4.4 million people in Australia are living with a disability, 4.4 million. But what surprised me is that 80% of those people, so 3.5 million, acquired that disability whilst they were living, so throughout their lives. That's 3.5 million. And of those individuals that are living with a disability, 48%, of those living with a disability, only 48% will gain meaningful employment throughout their lives. Bringing that together, the Disability Discrimination Commissioner, Dr. Bengal, he said that we're all, every one of us, only one sporting contest, one car crash, or one unexpected illness away from disability. So what does that tell me? What does that tell all of you? It tells me that me, you, my loved ones, your loved ones, are probably only one step away from acquiring a disability. And that given that there's 25, 26 million people in Australia, they've probably got a 14% chance of acquiring a disability throughout their lifetime. 14% chance. Once they've acquired a disability, it's highly unlikely that they'll get a job or be able to lead a meaningful life without a proactive approach from organisations like Westcare, who possibly, like I mentioned, in the future. So this is me. So the photograph at the beginning, great photograph, I'm sure my mum loves it, not one I like. These are the ones my mum won't like, doesn't like. So I thought I'd just talk a little bit about me, leading by this, but also why am I here, how have I come to Westcare? Because I think it does tend to surprise people, surprise me when I talk about it. As Miles said, I was in the industry for 37 years, and I can see you all looking at me. I must have joined it when I was about 3 or 4. I can tell. But no, I've been out of the military for a few years as well, so I'm of the age group of many of you in this room, believe it or not. I originally joined the Navy as a clearance driver, the Royal Navy, at 15, and for a short period of time I was the youngest qualified clearance driver in the Royal Navy. I later transferred to the Royal Marines, transferred to the British Army, and at Miles, which I transferred into the British Army. I do have operational experience. I've served in Northern Ireland, the Brits, Bosnia, Kosovo, Macedonia, and the Middle East, and of course I've done several tours of Afghanistan. I've also had staff appointments in NATO, the US, the UN. I've been attached to the US, the Canadians, the Germans, the Belgians, the Italians, quite a lot over that for 37 years. And as a soldier, whilst I always felt that I was doing good, upholding democracy, as we say, and fighting for the rights of the everyday man and woman in the countries I was deployed to, Afghanistan and Iraq, for example, Bosnia, I also built a very deep respect for the diverse cultures that I came across. I worked with all sorts of different people from different backgrounds, from interpreters to politicians, from shepherds to shopkeepers. And all the time, I often reflected on how good life is for all of us in places like Australia and places like the UK. However, throughout my career, probably because of my age, I didn't work a lot with females, but I never ever had the opportunity to work with people with disability. So possibly like a lot of men of my age, I didn't really understand the true challenges of living with a disability. I didn't understand what they faced, but I also didn't understand the full contribution that they can make to society. And also the contribution they make to the lives of people like myself, if they're given a chance. So a little bit about my journey. So after a long time in the military, it was inevitable that I've got some war wounds, like most of the military. I have been stabbed, I've been shot, I've been blown up. But I don't know why. I don't know why at all. But after my last tour of Afghanistan, I really suffered. I came back to Australia. And more than previous tours, even in Bosnia, where I witnessed a lot of mass shootings, mass murders and mass graves, Afghanistan affected me quite a bit. So when I returned, I was in a state of heightened alertness, I was quite agitated, I couldn't relax, I was always irritable, I couldn't sleep. Often reflecting quite sadly on many of the individuals that I had known that hadn't returned. I did become very distant from my family, and eventually I personally went through a very traumatic divorce and separated. And I resigned from the military. I didn't really have a plan. Miles had a plan. I didn't really have a plan. I sort of drifted between jobs for a while. I didn't have an idea of what I could do. There was no clearance divers in City Street, and certainly there was no mountain warfare specialist in Perth, that's for sure. So I didn't know what I was going to do. My mental health took a dive. I was quite depressed for a while, and this is when I was told that I needed an anchor. It was critical in my life at that time that I found something to change my life, something that I could grab hold of, and a reason to get up in the mornings. Something that I had to act right into, that I had to belong to, something to commit to. So I joined a whole number of organisations on a voluntary basis, some like membership. And they all evolved around providing services to people that were living with a disability, be it mental challenge, be it veterans, everything from veterans to teenagers to older people. So I joined quite a few organisations. And yes, my depression did subside, my mental health improved, my sense of purpose in life was reignited. I was no longer a soldier, but I was somebody that had a purpose, a reason to get up and go to work in the mornings. And I found my anchor. So as I was reflecting earlier, I think maybe some of this may resonate with some of you, especially listening to Professor Haslam's work as well. So today I'm the CEO of Westcare, and every day I advocate for inclusivity. I advocate for the rights of people with disability, no matter what their disability is, mental, physical, or however they come about it. I also advocate for the differences that they can make to society, but also the differences that they make to individuals like myself, and possibly to some of you, but certainly to some of the individuals that come to mention. So to put any challenges into context, I want to share with you some of the differences that we make at Westcare with some of the individuals. And you met Justin 2 minutes ago on the first slide. He's worked for Westcare for 21 years. So that is remarkable given somebody that's suffering with Down syndrome. He makes mind tags, he makes hospital files, and he's had a variety of other roles in the past. He loves coming to work, he loves socialising with his colleagues, he loves having a laugh, he just enjoys work. And Westcare has empowered Justin to think independently, to grow confidence, and recently to purchase his own apartment in Subi. That is unheard of for somebody in his circumstances. And he takes a great pride in looking after his apartment, showing people how well he is doing independently. He's also used his confidence and independence and gained through personal employment to develop his creative skills. Very recently, he's involved in a Channel 7 production alongside an award-winning actress, 6 other men with disabilities, called The Dream House. And it's similar to Bachelorette, I'm told. The production aims to inspire others with disability, but also to give an insight into the challenges but the capabilities of people that live with disability. It's Justin. At Westcare, we also have Peter. Peter loves coming to work as well, having a sense of responsibility and a commitment. And he says to me he loves being part of something bigger, something we all take for granted. Pete recently used his increased self-confidence to win a gold medal at the Paralympics. And he puts that down, a lot of that, to the influence of Westcare. So what are the challenges of being an inclusive organisation like Westcare, embracing diversity and enriching the lives of members and the broader WA community? The difference Westcare made in the lives of people with a disability, like Peter, like Justin, always makes any challenge worthwhile. The rewards of supporting someone like Justin go far beyond the enrichment to his life, make a deep impact on the wider community. The greatest challenges are often the most rewarding outcomes. So for us at Westcare, we don't look at his disability, we look at his ability. And we do this by what we call job matching, establishing what he can do, and then for looking for the roles that he can do. We use that to build his confidence, to build new skills, and to build his own independence. So people like Justin may have come to Westcare with very little work experience. And we work with them for sometimes a considerable time to make sure that we get the right role to make it successful for him, and therefore to make it successful for Westcare. And pivoting an organisation to become one that embraces inclusivity can be challenging, can be a bit daunting, but it's not impossible. And there is a framework, quite a successful framework that organisations have been using, and I don't have the time to go through it all at the moment, but I'm very happy to share that with anybody, individual or shared, that wants to have a look at that. It does look at the leadership of the organisation, it looks at the policies, it looks at things like sensitivity training and accountability. And please, if you are interested in moving and pivoting, learning a bit more, please do contact me. From an organisational perspective, what are the benefits to an organisation like MenShared, to Westcare, to others, of being inclusive? Well, as it says on the screen, it enriches all of our lives. It gives us access from an organisational perspective to a much wider talent pool. It brings greater innovation and better employer performance. That's from the McKinsey report 2015. It promotes the individual, gives new perspectives, encourages personal growth and development. It helps the organisation meet different markets. For us, it gives us that sense we can walk, we can talk to individuals, we can get a different sense of what the needs are in the wider community. And it builds a reputation and a much stronger brand for us. So that's the benefits to the organisation. I also thought I'd just quickly mention to you some of the quotes I get from our able-bodied staff about what it means to them to work with people with disability. And I've got a few quotes. Firstly, they bring a great culture to Westcare. It's never dull. Work is a happy, jovial, heartwarming environment. We get a sense of greater community engagement for everyone involved with Westcare. It contributes greatly to our overall sense of identity and our personal sense of self-worth. It gives us a sense of well-being, satisfaction to be able to empower people with a disability to live the very best lives that they can. It's greatly rewarding as it adds a real purpose to our daily routine, something we've not got from other roles. And it gives us an unparalleled feeling of self-worth and provide emotional support and companionship and friendship to our other colleagues who are people with disability. So what's the opportunity for you as members of MenShared, and to say with other organisations, and I say this sometimes, is that like Westcare, MenShared, you have we call it an unrivaled opportunity today to review all of your values and ethos of inclusivity and diversity, and in doing so, make a very powerful statement about the type of organisation you want to be in the future. One that makes a lasting and positive impact on the whole of the WA community, one that meets an increasing and vitally important social need for its members, but also the wider WA community, and one that is forward-thinking, securing thriving sheds into the future. Not only for you, not only for me, but really for our next generation, your children, our grandchildren. Thank you. Before we go to questions, I've just got an open invite from myself and from everybody at Westcare that if you feel, do like to visit Westcare, see how to manage diversity, inclusivity, meet us, see what we do, please feel free to contact me because you will always be welcome. And our workshop over on Hanwell Way is on open day on the 3rd of December. If you're there and you want to come along, you will always be welcome. Thank you.
Well, thank you. That was great. So a bit of a left field kind of idea here. We've heard I know there's a couple of sheds that welcome, openly and intentionally welcome people with disabilities. But you might have some questions for Rob in that whole area. So really we want to give you a chance to ask Rob some questions. And I think, Rob, and any question is okay, right? I mean, we don't have to, know everything, and any question is okay. So I'd like to hear from some of you about, from Rob. Yeah, here we go. Let's go next. We missed you last time, so we'll give you this time.
Max Buddy, Lake Munga Community Shed. Rob, thanks very much. Our board has been looking at how we can get people with disability involved in the shed. And in all sincerity, we don't have much of an idea. We do see a problem with bringing people into the shed who have limited capability and how that affects our insurance policy and how we can optimise the use of people with these limitations. So I'd appreciate any comment you can provide.
Yeah, thanks, that's a great question. Because I do sometimes look at Westcare, especially as I've talked to Mark, a bit like a large men's shed. Especially when you come to our Bassendean one, it is a bit like a large men's shed. Truly, we make things, we manufacture things, and we sell them for a certain sort of profit. That's the way we survive. It was mentioned earlier on that there is a lack of funding for people with a disability coming to something like men's shed. They'll come with their carers, and their carers are funded through NDIS. Attending men's shed isn't funded. Attending Westcare isn't funded either. So I think the first thing is that if an individual under NDIS needs social inclusion, etc., and wants to come to your venture, there'll be funding available. That's you just got to hook into the right local area coordinator for those individuals, and certainly will help you in that regard. Another thing that we mentioned earlier on with Hans is that marketing for men's sheds probably does need to change a little bit if you want to attract people with a disability and if you want to be more inclusive. And I don't say that detrimentally because I know that we've done the same. Westcare is often seen as a middle-aged Anglican-type organisation, which we're not. And so we struggle to get people with a disability. We always have vacancies. Men's sheds in 2 degrees is the same. You've got to understand why a person with a disability would want to come to a men's shed and hook into the same networks that they use. And certainly we do the same. Schools are a great area to look at for men's sheds, I think, because kids with a disability, when they get to age 12, every school is talking with kids with a disability, then they drop off. There is nothing for them after then. So what do they do when they leave school? The men's sheds in all of the areas are the ideal place where they can start to interact with other individuals, with the community at large, and start to get that stepping stone approach after year 12. One of the things I noticed in all of the areas is that kids with disability after year 12 disappear for a while. Unless there's an organisation like Westcare, or maybe like a men's shed that picks them up and guides them through those early years. And I do think that's a little bit of an issue. I hope that's answered your question to a degree, Max. It is a difficult area, attracting people with a disability. They've got to understand what are they going to get out of it. It's the same. But I do think that marketing mentions for people with a disability would be very, very beneficial. And I think it will hook into, later on, into the issues you're having around funding as well.
Ross Bolter, Vincent Men's Shed. As an aside, we have a number of disabled members, although we're not wheelchair friendly. My question is, what exit strategy do you have for people with disabilities when they achieve the age of retirement?
Yeah, we don't force retirement at any age. We don't have an exit strategist. We've got Michael, who's been with us for 43 years. He's retiring in a couple of months' time. And you know, he's a remarkable individual. He travels on public transport 2.5 hours every single day. He has been for 4 years to get to work and go home again. The only thing we can do, and we're not a carers association, we're an employer, is to hook in with his carers, family, etc., to see what support he's got afterwards. That is a little bit of a gap for us as an employer. As a caring and empathetic organisation, we do need to do that. We do need to make sure we can look after them, make sure we get a stepping stone approach. But we're not carers organisations, we don't get funding at all on those sides. We do talk to the individuals that do have carers that work for us and make sure there is a strategy for them, they've got something to do. And we also keep in touch with many of our ex-employees for many, many years. And some go and some come back again, but we don't have an actual exit strategy for individuals that are moving on. And that's probably too much to take a note of. It's not something that's actually raised in the enforcement.
Fred Bronson from Bunbury Manchester. On Mondays, we make wooden toys. We've got 3 blokes who are impaired, who come to the shed with their carers. In the beginning, the carers sitting down in the meeting room drinking coffee, playing with their bloody computers, while blokes like Eddie here and myself and a couple of others were looking after these 3 fellas. We have now decided that no, the carers are getting paid, they've got to care for these fellas all the time. So they're out in the workshop now. They can't walk around the farm have to wear enclosed shoes. My question is, are there any other sheds that have a similar situation whereby the carers want to take off and do their own thing and leave the people who they're responsible for Manchester to look after? Thank you.
Thanks. It's a great question. I'll answer it from a Westcare perspective to start with, because I get very frustrated as an employer when we have individuals with disability that have to have support during the day. And when they have to have support from a carer during the day, they come with them to work. And I get very frustrated when the carer, for whatever reason, sits in the canteen and we almost look after the individual because we're not funded to do that, but their organisation are. So I often will talk to their CEO and say, look, it's all. For us, under NDIS, there isn't a lot we can do except for liaise with that organisation and say that, unfortunately, if the individual comes in, they've got to follow safety, they've got to wear closed-toe shoes, they have to wear safety vests, etc., and they have to do their job, which is to look after the individual. If they've got challenging behaviour, they've got to do de-escalation with them, they've got to look after them, etc. We will do a lot of that, but they have to do that because they're funded for it. And the second bit is that when I talk to the other organisations, if they're not prepared to do that, then we're happy to register, which we are under NDIS, and we're happy to provide that support as long as we receive the funding, which we don't. But if we were, we would be happy to do it. Most organisations that I've spoke to are obviously not willing to give up the funding, and so they will often talk to the carer, and the carer will start to do what they're supposed to do. But they're not babysitters. I get a little bit frustrated when they come along and they just hand over in an employment setting and walk away. I'm sure that's exactly what happens to some machines.
Thank you. One more question here. So 2 more questions, yeah? And then one here.
My name's Les. I'm from the Fremantle Men's Shed, in answer to the gentleman here from the Bunbury Men's Shed. At the Fremantle Men's Shed, we encourage people with disabilities to come to the shed. And we meet there's Sis and Stuart and myself, and also we have supervisors at our shed. And Sis was an active industries in Bunbury for many years, employing people with disabilities and making that a success. But our policy is that a person with disability has to come to a carer. Person with disability becomes a full member, the carer is a half member, has to do inductions. They're with the person that they're caring for all the time. We have had examples people want to read newspapers and play with their telephone. And the supervisors, our job is to make sure that that person is working with their carer, or carers working with the person. We will assist with their job in helping. That can be fairly intensive. When you get 2 or 3 people working in the men's shed during the day, you have to put time into them, because our style of work at Fremantle is we're not encouraging repetitive work so much, but doing individual projects where people have to do their planning and their thinking about what they want to do. That we're quite strict on making sure that carer is working there and assisting the person with disability.
Okay, last question.
Is this going? Yeah. Roger Rebel from Joondalup. For some reason, over the last couple of years, we've had quite a large increase in our membership in terms of people with disabilities and carers and things like that, which has created a bit of a problem for us. I understand the gentleman over here that was talking before about inductions and the carer and all the rest of it. We've been through all that, and we had to be really quite firm with a number of the carers, because we had the experience of them just sitting there on their phones and wandering around, expecting that all of the volunteers in the shed and all the members were going to look after their job for them. And we stamped on it quite hard, and we just told them that, frankly, if they can't do the job, then sorry, you can't bring your people here. But in saying that, some of the people that have disabilities have female or men that don't want to do the induction and don't want to be out working on the sheds, are not comfortable doing it. And we have a resistance from our members because of the past experiences that we've had to assist these disabled people. And frankly, we don't really know how we're going to get around it. Can we direct that sort of thing to Westcare?
So yeah, happy to contact you. Just there's one point with it. The individuals that are carers are paid. We're not talking about family carers. We're not talking about unpaid carers. But merely those individuals that are paid under an NDIS plan, they're paid to provide that service irrespective of whether they have to wear coloured shoes or hide this clothing. And certainly we insist, and we won't allow them into the factory if they don't. And that is their employment contract, if you like, with the person they're caring for. And we've just started within NDIS to realise we have to as well produce an agreement, for want of a better word, for their carers to act appropriately while they're on our premises. And we've just started to put that together. So things like the way they behave, the way they're dressed, they follow our policies, etc. If there's a fire alarm, they escort their individual out, etc. They don't often do their own thing. So happy to take some questions and take some emails and dive into the specialists in Westcare that look after that area. We've got a few who are specialists in the NDIS and more care issues and disabilities.